I think you just need to make sure that you have a growth mindset. You're doing a deep dive into what your strengths and weaknesses are, understanding what those are, and then going and getting better at your weaknesses while you play to your strengths. And those are the traits that you want to have in salespeople.
Everything leads to growth with the National Association of Sales Professionals. The Leads to Growth podcast with the National Association of Sales Professionals provides in-depth discussions sharing the best sales, prospecting, influence, and communication skills, as well as sales training techniques to take your professional sales career to the next level.
All right. Hello and welcome back. We've got another awesome guest on our Leads to Growth podcast today. This one we've been putting together for over a year now, huh, Max? Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I know you're busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time with us here today. Our audience is going to be incredibly grateful. So for all of y'all who don't know already, Max Altschuler is passionate about the sales profession as they come, man. This guy is all sales. He created the premier B2B sales media company for all things sales innovation, Sales Hacker, and then ramped them up to over 150,000 monthly visitors before joining Outreach through acquisition. At Outreach, he leads all things marketing, along with the continued evolution of the Sales Hacker community. Max is highly regarded as a sales thought leader, published by Forbes, Time, Harvard Business Review, and Quora. He wrote the book on modern sales called Sales Hacks, the playbook for building a high-velocity sales machine, which was published by Wiley. He's a salesperson at heart. Max brings a deep understanding of all of our customers and sales engagement space to Outreach. Outside of work, Max is an avid traveler who's been to over 80 countries, man. Put that on a little bit of a hold right now. That's all right. Yeah. And he also loves to spend time hiking with his two surprisingly active King Charles Cavalier dogs, Bree and Tiny. Is it Teeny or Tiny?
Teeny, like martini.
Martini, okay.
I'm going for a whole charcuterie appetizer plate. You know, teeny, we got martinis, you got your brie. Maybe we'll get an olive in there. We'll get some kind of salami or some sort, some more cheese. Yeah, you know.
I love it, dude. I had to figure out what a King Charles Cavalier was. Those Spaniard dogs, they're beautiful.
Yeah, they're the best.
Awesome, dude. Well, very cool. Well, thanks again for being with us. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Would love to get started right away, Max. We want to talk today about the future of sales. You being, man, you're on the cutting edge all the time. Growth hacks just really seems like something that comes out of forward thinking and forward casting and creating that gap. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you created Sales Hacker and the transition over to Outreach, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so I was an early employee at a company called Udemy, an online education marketplace, and I was tasked with building the sales side of that marketplace from a very early stage. So top 10 employee, first guy on the sales side, and we didn't have a lot of money. So hacking sales is about doing more with less, generating more revenue and more opportunities, using less resources. So ended up building a sales development team in the Philippines, documenting that whole process, leveraging some early sales technology that allowed you to do, various levels of automation so that you can build a team in the Philippines. I was actually using SEO keyword tools to empower that whole process, which is like a hacky way to do things, right? Like who finds a keyword and tool made for SEO to figure out how to build strings that your virtual assistants in the Philippines could then go and copy and paste into content search engines, find leads, and then contact those leads. And that's what we did. So this way, somebody whose language wasn't English, was their first language, barely spoke it, could do the entire sales development process without having to learn that language fluently. I put in the keywords, they generated them through the keyword SEO tool so that it came out with strings which would be teach beginners Photoshop, for example. And they would take that, put it into a SlideShare or YouTube or Google, go down the rabbit hole, find the leads, and then I would write the email template for them, and they would send out the email templates based on the personas. So we did some 10-80-10 stuff, which was like personalizing the first line and the last line, and the middle 80% was based off 3 common denominators between a entire list of people that we can contact. So we, for an enterprise sales cycle, it might be VPs of sales in Boston in the healthcare space.
Right.
And so that part of the text was the same for all of them. And then you just change the first line and the last line. And then you have like a personalized message for that persona without having to personalize the entire thing. So you can get a little scale out of it. And there's software that allows you to do that, like Outreach, like sales engagement platforms these days. Back in the day, it was a company called ToutApp that we used. So documented this whole process, was writing about it, was talking about it, started a little meetup, an invite-only thing where, our mantra is just bring people who provide value and can bring value to the table and tell us their own stories. And the meetup grew from, 4 people slowly to 8 people to 20 people. And it was really just about making sure we had a tight-knit, really sharp group there that could bring value to the conversation. And left Udemy, went to a company called Attorney Fee, ran both sides of the marketplace, sold to LegalZoom, and then they wanted me to move to Austin and switch to marketing. So said there's not enough zeros on the check to make me do either of those two things, and started Sales Hacker as a conference. So went to that meetup, said to them, hey, who here would be interested in doing this? Speaking at the conference or sponsoring. And in that room, I had $15K worth of sponsorships, and I had 6 really amazing speakers. I had Doug Landis, who at the time was the VP of Sales Productivity at Box, Armando Mann, who at the time was the VP of Sales at Relate IQ, which would later sell to Salesforce a couple months later for like $400 million, $360 million or something like that. We had Matt Cameron, who was the VP of Global Sales at Yammer. We had Jason Lemkin, who is the founder of EchoSign, which sold to Adobe for $100 million or so. So we had some really great speakers. Did the first conference, churned out the blog, started publishing my content, started crowdsourcing content, and it just grew from there. Now we got about 105,000 subscribers. Probably finished this month close to around 200,000 monthly visitors, and it's a publication for practitioners helping other practitioners. So all of our authors, our writers, our speakers, our podcast guests, everybody is a practitioner. People who are been there, done that, doing it right now. We don't want to be another textbook where like the minute it hits the paper, it's out of date. Absolutely. We wanted to be, exactly. We wanted to be real, relevant, raw, and like, my company is 500 employees and we're doing 75 million in revenue, growing 40% year over year. And I have this tech stack and I have this many SDRs and here's my process. And so, you could read that article about this person's process and you can say, oh, wow, that's where I'm going to be in 6 months or 2 years. Like, this is really relevant to me. Or you can say like, oh, cool, that's where we just were, but we didn't do this thing like they did. Maybe we should try that. So everybody gets, value out of it based on, the relevance. And we try and make sure we're always putting out quality content and really good sales hacks.
Awesome, man. I love that too. And it is a very much a community-led program or site. And that's beautiful because you, far too often, like you said, is somebody putting out there something on a textbook. 9 times out of 10, they got it, copied it from somewhere else or got the idea from somewhere else. And it's just an old idea where when you go to Sales Hacker, when you follow your blogs, you get to find out what's happening today in sales, right now out there live, which is a beautiful thing. So tell me about Outreach.
Yeah, so Outreach is the leading sales engagement platform and allows you to basically sell in a modern way. So for a long time, we had personalization, relevance, and now we have omni-channel. Omni-channel is the future of sales. Omni-channel is people like you and I who are in places where they like to be sold and don't like to be sold all the time. So for example, I'm a salesperson. I live out of my phone. Where are you going to sell to me? You're probably going to text me. You're going to call me. You're going to leave me a voicemail. I live out of my phone. I'm not in an email. If I'm an ops person, I might live out of 2 monitors. What are you going to do? You're going to call me? Calling me is not going to get through to me. You might want to email me or send me a personalized video or something like that because I'm living out of monitors. You have to think about the channels that people have, at their fingertips these days, and you have to use a platform that is fully omni-channel. Otherwise, you're not tying all your actions together. So you need to make sure you're hitting people at the right time with the right message, making sure things are personalized, make sure they're relevant. But you need to make sure you're also doing it at the right channel. Because if you're trying to sell me on by calling me and leaving me voicemails, my message to people leaving me voicemails says, please do not leave me a voicemail. Please text me or email me. And I give you my email address and you have my phone number. So you can text me and you can email me, but I will not check my voicemail. I don't even try to transcribe it. That is not the channel I live on. So you have to really get to understand, your buyer and your ICP and where they want to be approached. And so, we built this platform that ties into chat and one-to-one personalized video and direct mail and, handwritten letters. And then also, the platform allows you to send emails, phone calls, voicemails, LinkedIn, text, all natively through the platform. And that allows you to tie it all together so you can line it up in sequences. So you can say on day one, make a phone call, leave a voicemail, then send an email. Day two, connect on LinkedIn, send a LinkedIn message, et cetera, et cetera. And then it gives you the analytics that ties it all together so you can clone your best reps. So if there's somebody that has the ideal sequence, you can clone that. If there's somebody that has the ideal messaging, you can clone that across your entire team. And you can see all the open rates, sentiment analysis, next best actions, and things like that. So I really think it's where we're going. I think a lot of the modern sales technologies tie into, what outreach does. And it's one of the, major reasons why in the acquisition, this was something that was super interesting to me. And I also happen to be an early investor, so that helps too.
Yeah, it's always a good piece. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple of things there. You mentioned the future of sales. Right now, what we've got Gen Y or Gen X is now up into the 35. We've got the baby boomers moving out of these buyers and C-level positions, a lot of Gen X and whatever the Xennials, you got all these different names in here. The generations are changing. We have so many more generations squashed up into a smaller time frame than we ever have before.
Yeah, and technology. That's why. Technology is moving faster than ever before. I mean, I remember when I was 27 and like Snapchat and stuff came out and I was like, what is this? I don't want to use this. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, I'm 27 and I don't think like a 21-year-old. Like that generation gap is compressing big time because of technology. You just think differently as technology continues at this rapid pace. So it's only going to continue on this trajectory, and we need to be able to adapt to that as we go. And right now, we have a good 10 years before millennials probably hit the C levels and the other generations fill in the backfill. But the getting people's attention is only going to get harder, which is why you need to make sure you're on the right channels.
Absolutely. And on the right channel. So these channels are evolving and changing, right? How as a sales team and a sales force, can you automate things and sequence things, but still remain flexible to your buyer?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways, and you have to do your research. You have to make sure you're not over automating everything. You have to make sure that your team knows that the technology that they're using is there to empower them and supplement them and enhance what they're doing, augment what they're doing, and not replace what they're doing. The second we over automate is the second we're not needed. And then your boss could just click a button and your job is gone. Click a button and it does your work. What's the point of you, right? So you need to make sure that you are providing value to your organization. You're doing research. You're finding ways to reach out, using that personalization, using that relevance, and trying to do it at scale. So there's the 10-80-10 stuff that you can do to do it in a more scalable manner while still being personalized. It depends on the organization you're in and what you're trying to do. But as you go up market or as you hire more sales reps, you shouldn't have to feel strained to have to automate everything. You should be able to set up these sequences in a way where you are in every conversation. You are sending, the notes that are handwritten and whatever else. But you're doing it in a way that's organized and sequenced so that you can follow the right steps every time.
I love that. Systems in place that make your job easier, right?
Yeah.
This reminds me, you mentioned this technology changing a few times here. And this reminds me the conversation I hear. We talk about the future of sales. What is the future of sales going to look like in 2025? We talk a lot about the difference between artificial intelligence and that whole augmented intelligence, right? Too many people are concerned that artificial is going to come in and we don't have to do anything anymore. It's going to take my job. But you made a great point that those who are able to integrate with that technology, that augmented intelligence, are going to have the real advantage. What technologies, skills, tools do you see the future of sales bringing in? in 2025, what is sales going to look like, and what kind of changes do you already see happening?
Oh man, what kind of changes do I see happening? Yeah, I mean, technology is allowing us to analyze the data better than ever before. So it's allowing us to make informed decisions, whether that's on sales coaching or just actions that we're taking. Next best action is going to be one of those things. I wrote a Sales Hacker top 10 predictions article that you can find on Sales Hacker recently about, some of the things that we think are changing as we go into the next era. And next best action is one of those things, whether it's conversational intelligence, allowing you to say, okay, well, you should say this, you should bring this up in this part of the phone call, or something in email saying that like, oh, now based on the billions of emails we processed, you should talk about X or another topic, or coaching people. So there's a company called Xvoyant that does, not call coaching, but just like coaching in general, from performance, and you can see all the data, historically and statistically across the entire team, and say, okay, well, here's where this person's weakness is, and here's where we need to be able to play to their strengths, and here's where we need to be able to support their weaknesses. So there's this technology that hasn't existed for a very long time, but once it's starting to get the cycles, then the machine learning really kicks in, and like the AI really starts to kick in, because it has enough cycles and it's seen enough information. So if you like use Gmail right now, you'll notice that all of a sudden there's this like function that just showed up where it like finishes your sentences. Yep. And it's really good at that. And a lot of it is like tailored to you. Like, yes. I don't talk like most people. I'm like overly casual in a lot of situations, and it's kind of my brand, my persona. It works for me, but I don't recommend it to everybody else. You have to have a little bit of street cred to like kind of pull it off. But I mean, it's pretty amazing how it works. And they process hundreds of billions of emails probably. So they have the data to be able to do that. You can't do that unless you've processed that many emails. You need that repetition. So I think what we're going to see as the timeline moves on is more and more of these solutions will start to have the repetitions, and the AI and the machine learning will just get better and better and better. And it's never going to replace salespeople. I mean, like not in the near future, but it could help a lot. It could augment the things that you're doing. It could tell you the timing on things that you might not have necessarily known, or even how like the other person likes to buy or likes to act or likes to be spoken to. There are all these like disc analysis platforms now that show, okay, this person typically likes it when there's like, this person likes sarcasm, this person's super serious. Like, you need to reach out to those people based on how they like to interact, right? So yeah,
love that, man. So it kind of just reminds me of the process that we've already gone through, where everything went to like full automation, and then it started to get back to, oh no, that doesn't work, because people could tell right away. Like, it had this push, and then like, no, it's come back. And you're starting to see as the tools get better, their ability to integrate into our daily activities.
Yeah.
And that's a huge piece. So what are some, so you mentioned Snapchat, being on Snapchat back in the day, and like, what is this? And I even talked to you talk to your parents, you talked to somebody older the other day, having somebody try to transfer you a Venmo or something, like, what is that? They're just not up to date with these tools and technologies. With technology advancing so fast, what are some of the skills that our new salespeople out there need to start picking up and learning to be ready in 5 years and 10 years when things start changing? I mean, do they need to start getting into coding and things like that? Where's the line drawn?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to need to get into coding. I think they need to be able to work with technology. I think it's very important that people are able to do that. And I know my dad couldn't like figure out a DVD player 10 years ago. I can't imagine like, if I gave him a Roku or something like that, how he's going to figure that out. It's like, so you need to just embrace the technology, and as sales leaders, they need to do the same thing right now, because it's coming, and it's going to separate the winners from the losers. You also need to be a quick learner, and I think like hiring for people who are quick learners is very important. So people need to have growth mindsets. They need to be able to learn quickly. It's not something you're born with. I know everybody's like, oh, I have a fixed mindset, like I'm screwed. It's like, no, you can build a growth mindset, but you have to try. You have to understand, like, goal setting and the ways that you learn best. Really, like, you have to really understand yourself and then work on sharpening that sword. So like something I do is I have like a goal framework. I set up my goals for the year, and then I set up my goals, and then I monitor my goals every week, and I make sure that I'm continuing to grow every week. I think, for a lot of people, they're like, oh, I don't need that. That's not going to help me. They think that things happen to them instead of like them happening to things. And those are the people that are going to fail fast and then not take accountability for their actions. So I think you just need to make sure that you have a growth mindset. You're doing a deep dive into what your strengths and weaknesses are, understanding what those are, and then going and getting better at your weaknesses while you play to your strengths. And those are the traits that you want to have in salespeople, and really hone in on over the next few years and starting now.
I love that. That is beautiful, man. And it's funny how we're getting back inside again, right? Back inside to that it's about us. It's about having the proper mindset. It's about having the proper perception. It's about having the proper habits in place. And then, like you said, man, you said so brilliantly, who you are today is not who you have to be the rest of your life. These are just habits, patterns, and beliefs that were more than likely given to you from your family, the way you grew up, the people you were around when you grew up and got here.
Yeah.
It's okay. And there's no guilt around that, but now it's time to start moving forward if that's where you're at right now.
Yeah. We come pre-programmed by generations of scars, tattoos. If you come from a family where, they came over from the Holocaust or something like that, like they're going to have their own scars that when you're born, you get without even knowing it. There are things that have happened in generations where it just gets passed down, anger issues, whatever it is, and you're pre-programmed. But like, that's not who you are. There's no such thing as fixed. Everything can be changed. It's all in your mind. It's all habit forming. So I think that it really comes by reflecting inwards and putting a plan together with yourself, but really understanding what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths, and what do you need to change.
100%. I'm just going to give a shameless plug right here. This is what the CPSP is all about. The Certified Professional Salesperson Program at NASP is all about unwrapping the habits, patterns, and beliefs that you have right now, creating a vision and an identity that you want to have, developing those habits and patterns and beliefs that vision needs to have in order to get there, and then taking you through the process of, it's going to be hard. Don't worry. You're going to get through it. Just like a muscle is going to burn. It's going to burn a little bit when you go through that uncertainty, and it's going to get easier as you go. And once those habits are yours, they're yours. Nobody can take them away from you at that point.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Max. Now, Max, question for you. I always hear people making decisions and making changes in their company when something goes wrong, when the AKA hits the fan. What are some proactive hacks that sales leaders can make? I heard you mention one thing, and I'll give you an example of what I'm looking for here. You mentioned on a previous interview of yours about just the mindset and how every sales leader should be looking at their sales process every year. You should have, or every quarter, that you should have make a habit of going back and reevaluating these processes to make sure that you are on top, make sure you're up to date, make sure you're staying ahead of the curve. Yeah. What are some other proactive things that sales leaders can do out there to really keep their process, their team, and to stay ahead of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big one. So just making sure you're always going through your process and saying, all right, where can we find efficiencies? I think individuals and processes need to be set up to scale. So if you're an individual, you look at your A to B that you need to go from, whether that's closing a deal or, for me, it would be building something, in our marketing process. And you build that process. You strengthen all areas of it. You then find ways to scale yourself off of it. So you find areas of automation, areas where you can outsource, areas you can potentially hire internally, or things that you maybe don't even have to do in that process that are wasted motions. So as a sales leader, as a sales org, you need to do the same thing. So, for the way that I look at it, you build a pretty manual process, make sure the core things are down pat, and then you start layering in technology. You start figuring out, okay, where are areas that I can outsource, or are there specialized roles I can create here? You might be looking at your process, and doing your yearly review, and say, man, I have all my reps writing their own sequences, writing their own templates, writing their own campaigns and emails. I should hire one person full time to do all the writing, and then they give them to the reps, and the reps kind of add in just their little bit of research stuff, but the main message and the body is proven, tested, and is written for that campaign. Maybe that's a new role that you want to layer in that'll save all of your sellers a lot of their time so they can focus on selling activities. Maybe there's automation, like Outreach or other platforms that allow you to save time so your reps spend more of their time doing selling activities and less of their time doing the mundane, monotonous stuff, admin tasks that anybody can do. Maybe it's hiring a virtual assistant that goes in and does all that work, cleaning up data, et cetera, et cetera. Why would you have your expensive admin or your expensive sales ops person in San Francisco making $140,000 a year, do a bunch of data entry stuff when you can outsource it to the Philippines for $800 a month? So really just taking a look at everything, making sure that you can find ways to scale and get to the next level of your business. So that's, in terms of sales leadership, my number one go-to. Number two is really understanding your people. Because of this millennial shift that's happening right now and these generational shifts, you could potentially have 4 or 5 generations of people working under you.
Right.
And, just like you would manage men and women a little bit differently, like there are a lot of different personalities. You should know how to get the best out of your people based on all the different factors that are at play. And the generational one is a factor where, millennials take feedback differently than Gen Z, differently than, baby boomers and you name it. So that's something to pay attention to as a leader, making sure, how to give that feedback so that it's going to, your reps are going to feel encouraged, empowered, and they're going to take that feedback and they know, if they've done something wrong, okay, this is what I need to fix. But they're going to feel encouraged by it instead of discouraged by it. So another thing to think about.
Awesome. Love that stuff. And I love how we go back to, it's like an audit, right? The same way we need to audit ourselves and our skills and where we're at and figure out what the gap is and continue to close that gap. The same thing we need to do with our business, with our people and with our systems. Love that stuff, man. So Max, one more thing, I've got a lot of salespeople out there. What's a couple of little sales hacks? I mean, I know you're on the marketing, you got all kinds of big stuff you're working on, but there's a lot of people out there that are in the streets that are hustling and grinding. What are a couple sales hacks you could leave with them? Something that could make a click for somebody out there today.
Yeah, so this is a longer term thing, but it's something that people really need to understand that are in sales right now. LinkedIn, if you're selling B2B, is a place you need to be. You need to be building your brand. You need to be connecting with like-minded individuals. You need to be sharing content that you think your audience would be interested in. You need to be sharing your thoughts and be a positive, role model for your audience because it is a place where you can build a brand right now. And I think B2B influencer, that model is, I typically think like B2B marketing is like 3 years behind B2C marketing. So you saw what happened with like influencers on Instagram. I think LinkedIn is the next level of kind of like the B2B version of that. I got about 26,000 followers now. When I post, it gets 50,000 plus views, sometimes all the way up to 1 million views, I think is my biggest one. But those are all people that are buying and you're influencing those people. And when they like it, their network sees it and you're influencing those people. And it is just this big kind of echo chamber, type of network where it's like, wow, this can really reverberate and amplify outside of, your network that you have currently. I think like at this point, I'm up to like 26,000 followers and I'm adding, about 50 a day. So like, that's pretty amazing because these people that view my profile, like I'm in another window here and I can look at manage my followers and it's decent sized companies. I'm looking at somebody from Hyatt. I'm looking at somebody from let's see. You got to click in to like see the titles and stuff like that sometimes if their titles are too long, but like it's usually pretty good companies that are coming to your site that I can then go in and treat almost like an inbound lead. Hey, so you came by my profile. What can I help you with? How can I help? What's going on? Let's start a conversation if they're big enough. So I would do that if that is, if you're looking for a hack, it's a little bit longer term, but it's definitely something you should be focusing on.
I love that. Yeah, and I love a lot of this stuff. You hear me say it a lot. But what you just said there, it's a longer term, y'all. So this isn't just like you walk into a group in LinkedIn and just start asking for business. No. You heard what Max said. Max is always adding value. He's putting out messages that his audience wants to hear. He's contributing. He's giving things that they want to know. And then when they're ready to make a decision or they're ready to move, he's there. Right? And this is what you live the value leads, money follows, Max.
Mm-hmm.
Your Sales Hacker Network was, I don't even know. I barely ever, I don't even know if I've ever seen an ad on there. But you guys, it's all constant, amazing content. And you really push out that value to become the authority. And then when anybody has a need, you're there on the channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome stuff, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate the time. I know you got to run here, but you gave our audience some great things. And one more thing, Max, before we let you go, where can our audience follow you, get more information from you, hear more from you?
Yeah, so find me on LinkedIn at Max Altschuler. I'm the guy with Outreach and Sales Hacker on my profile. We have our upcoming conference Unleash, March 10th to the 12th in San Diego. Should be a great one. And our upcoming book on sales engagement. So stay tuned for that. Writing that book with VP of Sales at Outreach and CEO at Outreach. All about sales engagement, not about outreach. All about sales engagement, best practices and strategies. So that'll be a big one. So check us out, salesengagement.com to get more information on that. Outreach.io to get more information on Outreach, and then Sales Hacker, obviously, to join the community.
Awesome. Max, it's been a pleasure, brother. I really appreciate the time and energy, and hopefully we catch you again before another year goes by.
Sounds good.
For the audience out there, Leads to Growth podcast, you know where to find it. It's on iTunes. Go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, and share on the videos. Tell some of friends, and become a member of NASP today and go check out Max, all right? That's you. We'll see you again real soon, y'all. Cheers.